Welcome to another episode of The Blitz, where I'll be your host once again, Bryan Greer. And today I will be recapping UFC 186. I think that we are very surprised if you're MMA fans of how good the fights were, despite the lack of star power on this card. How could you not like the finish by Demetrius Johnson and that awesome submission at the end of that fight? Just incredible. We will be getting to that in a few minutes, but first I do want to get into a fight on the preliminary card. Sarah Kaufman versus Alexis Davis in the women's bantamweight division. This was a very good fight in the first round. Sarah Kaufman was really putting it to Alexis Davis with her striking, just really getting her combos right. Just, her jab was just, connecting over and over on Alexis Davis, getting her on her heels and really putting her, against the fence and everything. I think Alexis Davis just came out in the first round just very sluggish and just didn't look right. I was very shocked at how Sarah Kaufman was able to just, connect and do whatever she wanted to. But between the first and second round, I believe Alexis Davis got her head right with her corner and started listening to them and started using her, jiu-jitsu to her advantage, because we know that Alexis Davis is a ground specialist and a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and that Sarah Kaufman is primarily a striker. So in the second round, she finally, got her takedown, started to, work her submission game, and got her against the fist, started using her ground and pound, and pulled off an incredible submission armbar where actually it went a little longer than it should have, because the ref could not see Sarah Kaufman tapping from the bottom. So really good win for Alexis Davis. She really needed that to get back in the title picture, because that was a really not looking good for her in the first round. But she got it together in the second round, got the takedowns on Sarah Kaufman, and was able to get a very good armbar submission win. So kudos for her for getting back on the winning track and getting her name back in the title picture of the women's bantamweight division, which we know is ruled by the pound for pound best fighter in the women's MMA, Ronda Rousey, who I don't know if you could put 5 women in there at one time, she could be beat, but that's for another day. I want to go ahead and get to the main card, which is Thomas Almeida versus, I believe, Yves Jabouin. Thomas Almeida, this guy is incredible. I don't know what else you could say about him. He has 18 wins, and only one of them has gone to a decision. He has 14 first round wins by in the first round, and was just once again incredible in this fight, winning in the first round by TKO. He was able to just get his strike going right away, put Yves Jabouin against the fence. We know he's a very tough veteran, and he just made easy work of him. I just was once again impressed by Almeida. He was just connecting on all his punches, just landing at will, and Yves was he basically just gave up against the fence because he was not, striking back or anything. So the ref had to stop that fight, because I don't know what would happen if it went any longer. This guy is incredible on the feet, on the ground. He just shows it all. And again, another Brazilian to watch out for in the lightweight division, because he really just connected on all his punches, just picked apart Yves Jabouin. He didn't have no answers for anything that he was throwing at him. And I think it's time that we give Almeida a top tier contender, because this guy, every time he comes out, he is putting opponents away. Like I said, 14 first round victories, which is just insane out of his 18 wins. Undefeated, has not looked tested at all in any of his fights, really. I know he's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but from people in the know, he was doing this in Brazil before he got to the UFC. So I think we got another contender in the lightweight division, which we all know is stacked and very heavy. So want to get into the second fight on that main card, which was a real barn burner and another very good fight between John Madesi and Shane Campbell in, again, the lightweight division. These two guys came out throwing bombs, going back and forth in the first round. Didn't take long for them to get warmed up. John Madesi, every time he sees a fight in Canada, he is just putting on a great performance. Finished this fight in the first round also by TKO. Vicious leg kicks, vicious punches, just put Shane Campbell against the fence, was just connecting with his kicks, with his punches, just brutal striking. I don't know why John Madesi can't do this outside of Canada, because I believe he's undefeated, and every time he goes to Canada, he just seems to put his opponents away, and he really needed this fight because he had looked pretty bad in his last performance, and as we know, lightweight division is very stacked, so when you lose a couple or three in a row, you could be on the chopping block in the UFC. So he definitely needed a really good performance against Shane Campbell, and did so. And John Madesi, we know when he really brings it and put it all together, he's one of the best strikers in the lightweight division, and he showed that in this fight, and it was just incredible. And this fight was a fight that before TJ Dillashaw and Renan Barao were on the main fight, was not supposed to be on the main card, but they brought it. Both of them did, even though Shane Campbell did get finished first round. He was throwing back, but John Madesi really did show a lot of just great striking and really mixing it up with his kicks. So kudos to him for also getting back on the winning track. Now, another fight that, me personally, I really wasn't looking forward to, but was a good fight, was Michael Bisping versus CB Dollaway in the middleweight division. But Bisping winning in a decision, but this fight was far from, lackluster like I thought it would be. Both guys were coming out striking. Bisping was landing leg kicks in the first round, just going at him, just landing all types of, boxing, combinations, just very crisp with his striking. Now, in the first round, Dollaway did land a wild hook, I think a right hook, and connected that dropped Bisping for a second, but he was not able to capitalize on that. And, he did, get a little bit of a ground and pound at the end of the first round, but it was very just back and forth and a very good close first round. Now, in the second round, it was all Bisping just connecting with his striking, really just putting Dollaway on his heels. He was unable to, do a lot as far as defend those strikes, and he was unable to get takedowns in that second round. I was really, not shocked by that, because we know Bisping is pretty good with his takedown defense, and Dollaway was just on his heels in the second round. Now, going into the third round, Dollaway actually made this fight a lot more interesting. Getting his striking going, and also was getting in takedowns and really putting Bisping against the fence, and started working his ground and pound. And for the majority of the third round, actually had him on his back. And Bisping did get back up on his feet, at the end of the third round, and then started getting his strike going again, and actually landed some pretty vicious strikes and got Dollaway to the ground, and ended the fight on the ground with his ground and pound. And both guys really brought it in this fight also. And I believe that the decision was right, giving it to Bisping. Very close fight, but I believe in the first and second rounds, he just got the better of Dollaway, and it was a good fight. But I just want to say, by no means does this fight and this win put him in a title contention. I don't understand why people continue to give Michael Bisping so much, credit. Like, he just went out there and just annihilated Dollaway. Like, Dollaway is a top 5, ranked opponent or anything. We know Dollaway is a tough guy, but he is a journeyman, I believe he's ranked number 12 in the middleweight division. By no means is this a win that puts him in any kind of title contention. It's just a good win. And every time that Bisping wins, it seems the MMA media just, we got to give Michael Bisping, all his credit, and he's only one more win away from a title shot, it seems like. I just, hear that in the post-fight, interviews and the post-fight press conferences. It just seems that, because he's British or from the UK, and that's a big market, that's the only reason he's getting, so much attention and everything every time he wins. But every time he does get a title, contender fight that'll put him in the mix, he loses. So I don't want to hear anything. This is just another one fight win streak for him, and he's still far away, in my opinion, from a title fight, because that just doesn't make sense to me, because it's a good fight, good win for him, but by no means should he be fighting anybody like a Jacare, which I heard, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Because Jacare actually should be fighting for the title instead of Luke Rockhold. Yes, people, Jacare should be fighting for the title. I don't want to hear about him, fighting Chris Camozzi. He did what he's supposed to do. The guy has run through everybody in UFC, and I think he should be the one getting the title shot after Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort fight at UFC 187. So, like I said, kudos to Michael Bisping. Great performance and everything, but nothing should be made of this as far as him getting any kind of title shot or contender fight. So I want to go ahead and get into the co-main event, which was on and off again, and was on again, the return of Rampage Jackson versus Fabio Maldonado. Now, this fight was agreed to because that Rampage only got a couple days notice to fight to a 215 weight, catch weight. And that reason being, like I said, since Rampage was only given a few days notice because of his legal situation with Bellator, was able to fight. And Rampage looked very good with his striking, very crisp. He had good head movement, good footwork, was just landing at will all 3 rounds against Fabio Maldonado. Maldonado looked like he was just there for the beating. I don't know what he was doing. He didn't seem to want to return strikes a lot. Only seemed to return strikes in the 3rd round. But the first 2 rounds, in Rampage just landing at will. Maldonado was showboating a little bit, telling him, I'm tough, and, waving his arms in the air like, come on, and all that, hitting his stomach, I don't know. He just seemed to love the beating that Rampage was giving him, and Rampage was up for it because he was landing his hooks. Just everything was just very crisp. He seemed to come in this fight well-conditioned. Did not get gassed. We know that Rampage, the last time he fought in the UFC, which was in 2013, that he gassed out very quickly. But in this fight, he was all 3 rounds, winning by a decision. But Maldonado was just beaten, battered. He was just not in this fight at all, in my opinion. Only in the 3rd round did he look any type of activity. Did land a few strikes, but this was Rampage's fight, and just an impressive win for Rampage, because as we know, Maldonado is a good striker, but nowhere near a title contender type fight, but a good fight for Rampage to win. And we all love to hear him on the mic afterwards, calling out some of the haters and all this kind of stuff and everything of that nature. But really thank the UFC for letting him back in after being with Bellator and everything. And it was just good, because we know that Rampage, even though he is on the downside of his career, is going to draw pay-per-view buys, and also is going to give attention because of his bravado and how he really promotes himself. So it really was a good performance for Rampage, and good to see him back in the UFC. Now, we do not know, because of his legal situation, if he will continue to be in the UFC, because it will be dragged out, I think, in court for a while with Bellator in the way that he did leave. I don't think they're going to, just let him just stay in the UFC and without a really big fight. So, who knows the next time we get to see Rampage. But it is good to see him, back in the UFC, and, made up with Zuffa, Dana White, and, Lorenzo Fertitta. Seems that they're back in the good graces, which you don't know how long that'll last, but for right now, it seems all good. Now, let's get into the main event, the flyweight championship bout, which was Demetrious Johnson versus Kyoji Horiguchi. This fight was all Demetrious Johnson, once again proving why he is the pound-for-pound best fighter in MMA. He was incredible. In the first round, Horiguchi actually came out and landed a couple of, jabs that kind of actually, got Demetrious Johnson on his heels. And, it was very competitive. He came out very active in the first round, and, made it very, competitive. Actually, defended the takedown in the first round. But after that, in the second round, Demetrious Johnson started working his takedowns. His striking was just faster. Started gassing out Horiguchi. Same in the third. It was just incredible technical striking and takedowns by Demetrious Johnson. And the fourth round same, but that finish in the 5th round was one of the most incredible finishes I've ever seen in MMA. Got Horiguchi in the last about 30 seconds of the fight in a crucifix, was just working his ground and pound, just smashing his face open, and it was just a brutal beating in that 5th round, and then transitioned into an armbar for the finish with 1 second left. 1 second left. I just have not seen that in MMA. That's incredible. That's a record that cannot be broken. I just can't say enough about Demetrious Johnson, how he just continues to finish fights in all types of ways, just dominates his opponents. Doesn't ever go out there with a lackluster performance. Horiguchi was never in this fight after the 1st round. Was just gassed. I think he might have broke his nose. You saw blood just spilling out of it. And once again, Demetrious Johnson is showing why he is the flyweight king. And I don't know what else he can do in the flyweight division, because he has pretty much cleaned it out. Anybody that he fights, he seems to go out there and handle with ease. And you know, I just can't stand how the MMA media just continues to patronize him and just say, you know, oh, he's so fast. Oh, he's just so technical with his striking. No, this guy is a beast. He goes out there, he dominates fights. He does it just as much as Chris Weidman, John Jones, anybody you want to talk about, Jose Aldo. He does it on every level. I know that he doesn't go out there and say a lot of crazy stuff to promote himself, like a Conor McGregor or a Rampage Jackson, or a guy like Michael Bisping, which says anything and everything to promote a fight, but he lets his performance speak for it, and that's what counts at the end of the day. You can say what you want to, but you got to go in the octagon and perform, and that is what Demetrious Johnson does. And it's time for him to start getting more credit and more pub, because the UFC does not do a good job of promoting Demetrious Johnson. I know Dana White in the post-fight interview and the post-fight press conference was talking about how he doesn't give him credit and all that, but the UFC during the weeks up to UFC 186 is doing a world tour for Jose Aldo, and Conor McGregor, which are not fighting until July, and they're not even promoting Demetrious Johnson or any of his fights. They always seem to be somewhere else, and then the week off is like, oh yeah, Demetrious Johnson is fighting, and give him maybe 2-3 days worth of promotion, which is ridiculous. So this is by no means Demetrious Johnson's fault that he does not get the credit he deserves, and that he does not get more attention from the media. They have to promote him. They have to start showing his fights and how he finishes incredible ways, because after this fight you can no longer sit here and say that he does not put on exciting fights. I don't know what you're looking at if you think he's not an exciting fighter, because he is. So kudos to Demetrious Johnson once again, going out there, putting on an incredible fight, another incredible submission. I don't know, if he's got something else in his, back pocket, any other tricks, because he has done it all as far as I'm concerned. So, I just really am in awe at how he just continues to just roll through the flyweight division with ease. So, overall, a good card, a lot better fights than I think we expected, with the bantamweight title fight canceled because of TJ Dillashaw's injury. So just really good fights. I know the Montreal crowd didn't really show up. Only I think a little over 10,000 people showed up, which we know that Canada used to be a hotbed of MMA. I think now that GSP is retired, that it's kind of fallen off a little bit. But it is hockey season up there, and they know that their mind's really not on MMA right now, especially with not a big time Canadian on the card to headline it like a GSP. They did not really show up, but overall good card, good fights, and everything was just very on point as far as all the fights. So I want to hear in the comment section what you thought about the fights. I want to hear your thoughts on Demetrious Johnson. Do you think he gets promoted right? Do you think that the UFC needs to do a better job? Because I think that's something that needs to be discussed more. Want to hear your thoughts about Rampage Jackson and his return. Were you impressed? Were you not impressed? Everything of that nature. So look forward to hear what you're saying. And as always, I want you to like this video and also subscribe to our channel, Unrivaled Multimedia. And until next time, take it easy.